The Atlantic slave trade took place in the Atlantic Ocean, where Western Europeans would go to Western Africa and take them to the New World, where they would be forced to work to create spices and other goods. The Western Europeans who came to Africa would captivate the Africans in their villages and take them to be sold in the New World as slaves. Some were taken by force, or self-surrender, or even given up by their own kings. These kings who gave up their subjects would benefit economically, as the Europeans were willing to pay them hefty prices, as well as having an influx of goods on their societies. Once on the slave ships, the Africans were treated as product rather than human beings, and as a result were subject to inhumane conditions under the deck. They were packed until no more could fit, and everyone did their business right then and there. Because of these conditions, slaves would revolt in hopes to overthrow their captors and sail back to their homelands, to be free again. However, these attempts proved to be futile. Once the ship sails to their destinations, the slaves would be herded off the ship and placed in little areas where they would soon be sold to farmers and plantation owners. The slaves would then work the fields to produce products like tobacco or cotton or sugarcane.
The Middle Passage was a path that slave traders took the slaves to the Americas, and was infamous for the terrible conditions that slaves had to deal with on the way there. Ships were overly crowded and unsanitary. Today, historians use accounts from the traders and slaves on board to figure out what the boat ride was really like. Just like the boat ride to America, the working conditions of slave labor were also inhumane. Slaves were generally given limited amounts of food and water, and worked until they couldn't work anymore. They were then woken up early the next morning to do it all over again. The most common use of slaves on plantations were for harvesting high-profit crops such as sugarcane and cocoa beans. Sugarcane can only grow in certain climates, such as the tropical islands of modern-day Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Slave owners will usually try to give their slaves as little resources as possible, but still expect them to keep working hard, regardless of their health, age, or abilities.
After the slaves had arrived in America, they were sold to owners. There were different variations of plantations. One of these were sugar. The treatment of slaves depended on their owner. Some slaves were whipped and beaten for unreasonable reasons, while other slaves were treated with more respect. Slaves, most of the time, lived in little shacks with random people who they did not know.
The trading of slaves heavily influenced the world we know of today. Because of the free labor, economies boomed on all three sides of the triangular trade. Sugarcane especially boomed in the Americas, and because of this, Europe was able to create rum from the sugarcane to inevitably trade for even more slaves. These slaves were the majority of the population, as they amounted to almost 90% of immigrants coming to the Americas, leading to the diversity we see in our country today.
Mr. Wonka?
I am extraordinarily busy, sir.
I just wanted to ask about the chocolate. The lifetime supply of chocolate for Charlie. When does he get it?
He doesn't.
Why not?
Because he broke the rules.
What rules? We didn't see any rules, did we, Charlie?
Wrong, sir. Wrong. Under Section 37B of the contract signed by him, it states quite clearly that all offers shall become null and void if, and you can read it for yourself in this photostatic copy, I, the undersigned, shall forfeit all rights, privileges, and licenses herein and herein contained, etc., etc., fax mentis incendium gloria culpum, etc., etc., memo bis punitor delicatum. It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You stole fizzy lifting drinks. You bumped into the ceiling, which now has to be washed and sterilized, so you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.